So this is review packet number 1. This question is on Wednesday's part of the final. This says, write the equation of a line. This is an f of x equals y situation. So this is x equals 8 when y equals 10, and x equals 4 when y equals 9. There are 2 ways you can do this question. The way I taught you first was to find the slope, and then to use point slope, okay? So for this question, you might do 9 minus 10 over 4 minus 8 equals negative 1 over negative 4, or 1/4 is the slope. And then put it in using this point. So you would have y minus 10 equals 1/4 x minus 8, which would become 1/4 x minus 2, add that 10 over there, would be 1/4 x plus 8. Okay, that's an Algebra 1 question, by the way, okay? Not trying to make you feel bad. I'm just trying to tell you, if you're still struggling with that, you need to spend some time on it, okay? The other way you could do that is to go to list 1 and list 2, if you remember how to do this. This would be 0.810 and 0.49. So you would enter enter to get to the list. 8, 10, and 4, 9. Do you remember doing this? Maybe some of you? Okay, and then it's stat right arrow choice 4 to get the line of regression. You don't need to store anything, so you can just go all the way down to calculate and hit enter. Whoops. And this is telling you A, the slope is 0.25, and B is 8. Would I accept if you wrote y equals 0.25x plus 8? Absolutely. Okay. So that was stat, enter to put the list in, and then stat, right arrow, choice 4, line of regression would be your other possibility. Okay, this is all written out on the answer key already, so if you can't keep up with me, just go and check the answer key. Does that make sense? Don't freak out. Okay. Oh. Guys, this one's on tomorrow's. It says exact answers, no decimals. Does that factor? No. Okay. Please do not factor something that does not factor. What is the other way we learn to solve that? Yes, when you have ax squared plus bx plus c, and you don't have to write that down, equals 0, then the quadratic formula says opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. This one that we have here happens to reduce. I might have made the one on the final not reduce so that it was easier. But opposite of b would be what here? A is 1, b is negative 6, and c is negative 11. Everybody good with where I got those? Okay, so you'd have 6 plus or minus the square root of negative 6. You got to have those parentheses, or just type it in as a positive because it should become 36. Minus 4 times 1 times negative 11 all over 2a. Okay? If you type negative 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 11, you should get 80. Okay, so it's 6 plus or minus the square root of 80 over 2. Whoops, this was 2 times 1 down here. Sorry, my bad. 2 times 1. And then 80 is the square root of 16 times the square root of 5. So you end up with 6 plus or minus, what's the square root of 16, guys? 4 square roots of 5 over 2. Now, this is where people reduce wrong. Another part of the reason I picked one that doesn't reduce, so you have less chance of missing it. But you have to reduce separately. Okay? If that 2 doesn't go into both of those, you can't reduce it. But it does here. But I think the one on the final is easier because it doesn't reduce, okay? I'm not even sure the radical simplifies. Questions? The final exam is not graded by standard. It's not 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's either right or wrong for every question. Some questions are worth multiple points because there's multiple parts. This one is probably worth 2 because if you started it right and then messed up, I could at least give you one of the 2. Does that make sense? All right. The height of a ball thrown up to the top of the building is this. You're going to replace these with X's and type this in. So I think I have it down here at number 3. Does that look right, guys? Negative 16x squared plus 80x plus 22. Okay. Now, it says later, when is it above 100? So I already plucked that in there. But you must have an appropriate window for this question, it says. X is time. Can time be negative? No, so everybody should tell me it starts at 0. Now, you just want to make sure the thing comes down again. The ball comes down and hits the ground. So if you went 0 to 10, that would be fine. I made my window as small as possible because I wanted to make sure that everybody could have a bigger window. And it says that when is the ball above 100 feet if you read the rest of the question. So you could leave this 0 because the ball hits the ground. The height is 0. I left it negative. That's fine, a little bit negative. But then it goes above 100 at some point. So you could have put in 200 or 150. You can so the smallest window you could have would be like to go to here and here. Do you see what I'm saying? But you can have a bigger window, that's fine. So I had, I think, 0 to 10 and like negative 10 to 150. I can't remember. But everybody's picture should look something like that. Okay? At what time did the ball hit the ground? What did we just say? This is where the ball hits the ground. How do you find that value to the nearest tenth? What is that called? Yes, so you go second trace. Choice 2 is 0. And it is somewhere between here and here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, and 6, I could say, if you wanted to type. Or you can scroll around. And I have 5.26. Now, sometimes this number back here is real wonky. You get like negative 1.3 E15, right? Or E negative 15. That's just calculator error. All right. To the nearest tenth would be 5.3. What time is the ball more than 100 feet above the ground? That's where I put in the y equals 100 line. And then what do I want to find here and here? Yeah, your table doesn't give you these values because your table's counting by ones. You can change your table to count by tenths, but it's still a pain in the neck. And I really want you to be able to find those intersection points. So it's enter, enter, enter to find one of them. I have 3.7. And then you have to do second trace intersect again. But this time you want to be sure when you hit guess, you're closer to this guy. So I have 1.3. Now I already forgot. Was it 1.3 to 2.7? 3.7? All right. For the average rate of change, does anybody remember what that word means or that phrase meant to do? Does that sound familiar to anybody? You have to find the slope. Okay, and it says from t equals 3 to t equals 5. So my suggestion is you go to the table and you put in the values for 3 and 5. You could also just do trace. But at 3, this was at 118, and at 5, it's down to 22. 118 and 22. So to find the slope between those, it's y minus y over x minus x, which is 96 over negative 2. Did I do that right? Which is negative 48. What would the label be? Anybody read the whole question? Right up here, it said feet per second. Why did mine turn out negative? Second 3 and second 5 are somewhere over here. And what is it doing between those? It's falling, right? Okay. Is that right? Yeah. All right. Whoa, that wasn't what I meant to do. Any question on that one? All right. It says use this expression to find f of 0, so you're putting a 0 in for everything. So you'd have negative 2, 0 plus 5, 0 minus 3 cubed. But later it asks you to put in your calculator, so you could start with it in your calculator. It doesn't matter. All right. I think it's this one. Is that the right one, guys? Negative 2, x plus 5, and x minus 3 cubed. All right. If I do a standard window, this is what I get. It wants to know the value at 0, so you could look at the table or you could do trace 0. When I do trace 0, it tells me 270. Now the next question asks for a maximum, so I need to see the top of this thing. I already know it goes up to 270 or more. Okay, so I think I changed this to like negative 100 to 400 or something. I don't remember. That's not high enough. That's goodness, that was painful. All right, you have to go until you find the top. All right, then we need the maximum point, so you go second trace maximum, and if you want to cursor around, it's somewhere between here and here. I got negative 3, 864. It says round, but it comes out nice. Did I put 0 in? Was it 270? Was that right, guys? And then it wants to know where it's decreasing. Remember how this goes? Increasing, decreasing. This is all decreasing, even though it does a little funky thing here. It has an inflection point there, but it does not change. So all of this, now it says X intervals where it's decreasing. Anybody remember how that goes? It means coming from the left, it's decreasing until it gets to the X here of negative 3, right? So from the left to negative 3. So that's negative infinity to negative 3. Questions? Okay, I really could skip this one. I think it's a very basic transformation. The parent function is whatever they give you here, whatever they're talking about for this transformations are applied to. And then a vertical stretch of 2 is multiplied. It's changing y values, so it's out front. Horizontal stretch of right 3 is changing x values, so it's inside. Right 3 is the opposite of what it seems. Down 2 is changing y values, so it is on the outside. Any questions? I did not put a tricky one like horizontal anything or even a reflection that you could confuse, okay? This is on Wednesday's part, but please make sure you practice this because I feel like we haven't done these forever. This is another way of writing this. You work your way backwards. Remember this? So you're putting 7 into G. So you'd have 3 times 7 plus 1 over 2. That's 22 over 2 or 11. And then you put that answer into F, because that's the order it said. That's 121 plus 1 is 122. Don't try to figure out an equation for anything. Just put the value in, okay? Any questions? I know I'm going fast, but you can rewatch the video. You can have the answer key to look over. I just want to make sure I've covered everything. Okay, inverses. There are more practice on this on packet 3, but inverse means you switch out the x for a y and the y for an x. Then you have to solve for y. There is a y in 2 places, so you cross multiply. X times y minus 3 equals 5y plus 1. Distribute. And then does anybody remember what the next steps are? You need everything with a y on one side so that you can factor out the y. So we're going to subtract 5y over here. And this doesn't have a y, so I'm going to add it back over here. So I have an xy minus 5y equals a 1 plus 3x, or 3x plus 1. The order doesn't matter. Then I factor out the y, and that leaves me with an x minus 5. And then I divide. Okay, and this is, they use some funky notation when they do this, but this is what you need to put on the blank. It could say this. You could have gone the other direction, and it would have maybe been something like this. Okay, there are multiple right ways to write that. Questions? Again, more practice on packet 3 of those. If you need more practice on those kind, and more examples on the answer key. Oh, I get so sad when people can't get multiplicity right. Multiplicity is simply the exponent power. What's the only thing with a multiplicity here? Yes, x plus 8. The 0 there is negative 8, and the multiplicity is 3. What are the zeros here and here? Well, the only thing that would make that a 0 is 0. And positive 2 would make that one a 0. And those are both multiplicity 1. You don't have to write a multiplicity 1. Okay? But if you total the multiplicity, it will tell you the degrees. So 1, 1, and 3 is 5 total multiplicity. That means it's a degree 5. That is an odd degree. An odd degree means it's either like this or like this. If it were an even degree, it means both ends are up or both ends are down. This is positive leading coefficient. What's the leading coefficient? Are there any leading coefficients here? They're all just 1, right? On all those x's. So this one has a leading coefficient of positive 1. So odd degree, positive leading coefficient. You can type it in your calculator, but it's going to take you a while to find a window for that where you can really see a good picture of it. I think you'll have plenty of time tomorrow because I split it over 2 days, but I'm just saying, you know the degree and the leading coefficient, you should be able to picture the end behavior. All right, I do not care what order you write the end behavior in, whether you put the x at the front and the y at the back, or the x at the back and the y at the front. I also don't care if you use f of x or y. But you need one that is describing the left behavior and one that is describing the right behavior, which would be x towards the left, x toward the right. What is this one doing on the left? It's going down, which means y is getting negative. And on the right, it's going up, which means y is getting positive. So these two, this one says left, down, and this one says right, up. Using the appropriate method. Can you use synthetic division when you're dividing by an x plus 4? Yep. If it was a long division on the quiz, I would review one, but hence it's not necessary. Okay, 1x cubed minus 6x squared plus 4x minus 2. Bring down the 1, multiply, add, carefully, multiply, add, multiply, I don't know, negative 176 maybe? I don't know if that's right, it's probably wrong. Okay. So, do I need that anyway? No, it said ignore any remainder. So it just wants to know what this polynomial means. What does that mean? Yeah, the back, this was a remainder, so this is the constant, this gets an x, this gets an x squared. So it's x squared minus 10x plus 44. My answer key had a minus 44, I've fixed it. Number 9. Oh, please don't get this question wrong. Oh, gritting my teeth. The number of possible real zeros is the degree, and the degree minus 1 is the number of turning points. What is the degree of this? Degree 4. So this is 4, and this is 3. Did I get that right? Hey, you don't need to graph it. You don't need to do anything because it doesn't say how many does it actually have. It says the number of possible. All right, number 11 says find the factored form in all the real zeros. What should you look for first? Common factor. What do all those have in common? If I take out an x squared, I have left x squared minus 4x minus 5. Which factors x minus 5x plus 1. So the real zeros are 0, multiplicity 2, which it didn't ask you to state. You can just say 0, I don't care. And then 5 and negative 1, which are both multiplicity 1. Everybody good? All right, number 12. This had a mistake on the key. If you looked at it this weekend, definitely had a mistake. Okay. When we need to label these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is -5. It crosses at 0 and it crosses at 2. It does not cross at -5. That's called a bounce, right? So when it asks for the zeros, you list them all in any order you want. But then it says, where does it need any multiplicities? Will you say multiplicity 2 at -5 because it bounces? Doesn't cross the x-axis. I cannot tell you how many of you will write that down. And then when you go to write the equation, you'll write x plus 5, x minus 0, and x minus 2. What is wrong with that? Yeah, you told me right here that there needed to be a multiplicity on this. It's also okay for the 0 if you just put an x out front, okay? I wrote it x minus 0 in case someone needed me to make sure that I understood where that comes from. All right. Then this is the equation. This question's worth like 4 points. So if you go ahead and say x minus 0, x plus 5 squared, and x minus 2, you can leave it in any order you want, and get that far, you're going to get partial credit. But to get full credit, you have to find the k. This one is not super clear. I think on the final it's a little more clear, but that is the value you're supposed to plug in. Okay, I think on the quiz there's like an arrow that says that point is -2, -288. So when y is -288, x is -2. You can do this in any order you want again. Okay, x is -2, y is -288. This is -288 equals k times. This would be 3 squared, which would be 9. This is -2 minus 0 is -2. This is -2 minus 2 is -4. If I multiply those all together, I get 72. And then if I divide, I get k is -4. So final answer is just to put that back in. Okay, here's a check. I had 8 because I forgot to do something. Does 8 make any sense with that picture? A leading coefficient of 8? They would both ends be going up, right? A leading coefficient of -4 makes more sense because they're both going down. Okay. All right. This is worth like 2 points. Please don't get this wrong either. Plus or minus all the factors of the constant, which in this case is -4, over all the factors of the leading coefficient. Now, pretend that says coefficient, which is 3. So what are all the factors of 4, guys? Okay, and the factors of 3 are just 1 and 3. So how do you write those? Put all the top ones over 1 would be and then you put all the top ones over 3. If you put a plus or minus one place, I'll be happy, okay? You don't have to put it on every single one. Questions? Gonna get that one right? You do not graph it for that, okay? This one says use a graph to confirm which of them are zeros. So you go to your calculator and you type it in. Is that the question, guys? This first one? Okay. And if I start with a zoom 6, this is what I get. I really don't need to mess with the window because I just want to know where the zeros are. Can you see some of the zeros, guys? Does it look like -2 and 2? You could go to the table. You should see 2 is a 0 and -2 is a 0. There is another one. We will find it eventually, but don't forget to put it here. All right, which one do you want to divide first? It says use division. -2 first, okay. 3, 1, -12, -4. Bring down, multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply, add. What does the last one have to come out? 0, or you did something wrong, okay? It's got to go in evenly. It was a 0 on the graph. Then you do the other one that was nice that you found on the graph. Bring down, multiply, add, multiply, should come out a 0 again. Now, those are the remainders. What does this tell you? Your last factor. So you have a 3x plus 1. What were the other two factors that we already knew here and here? Yep, any order x minus 2 and x plus 2. Now, what's the third 0 that I need to go back up and add here? -1/3. Everybody seeing that? Okay. If you write this as x plus 1/3, x minus 2, and x plus 2 in any order, you will not get full credit because it has to multiply back to make a 3x cubed, okay? If you just use this last factor right here, you'll be fine. Does that make sense? All right. You will have the reference sheet on the back of the final tomorrow that talks about vertical asymptotes. Okay, vertical asymptotes are found in the denominator. So how does this factor? Factors x plus 1 and x minus 1. So where are the two vertical asymptotes? The top doesn't factor, so it doesn't have a hole. It's very quiet in here today. Is that just because I'm going really fast or because you really have no idea? Yes? Do you get that? Where those vertical asymptotes came from? Okay. They do have to be an equation. Look, if you just write -1 and 1 on that line, you're not going to get full credit. They are equation of a line, and it says that on the reference sheet. It says x equals. All right. Same reference sheet. It says use the appropriate rules of end behavior for this rational function to explain its end behavior equation and then accurately find the equation. Okay, so what you need to write here for an explanation is this is degree what? 2 over degree 1, so it's called what? Top heavy. And then on the sheet it says that means no horizontal asymptote, and you have to divide to find the end behavior. Okay, so we have to divide this. What goes in the little box? Okay, the original version of the final, you had to remember to put a 0 in somewhere, but I might have been really nice this year and not made you put a 0 in. Bring down the 4. -12, add is -15, multiply is 45, add is 50. What is the equation of the end behavior? It says on the sheet, ignore remainder. So this is your remainder, and the equation, guys, I think I have to grade it. If it's not an equation, you don't get full credit. It's a line is the end behavior. This is y equals 4x minus 15. Are you going to be okay with that? You remember that y equals? Because remember, if it was a horizontal asymptote, it would be like y equals 0 or y equals 5 or something. They're all an equation. All right. Divide first. Log base 2 of x equals 8. Then you can think of this as exponentiating or rewriting. This means 2 to the 8th equals x, or you put a giant 2 down here, and this undoes each other and says x equals 2 to the 8th. Either way you want to think of it. Is that 256? Okay. But our little Algebra 1 brain went off first, and we had to divide by 5, right? Okay. This one says use the properties of logs. What is the property we need first? Yeah, condense. Division means, or I'm sorry, subtraction means division, right? Condense as division. And then rewrite after that. So you'd have log base 5 of x minus means divided by 6 equals 2. Again, you can't, some of you on the quiz are still wanting to randomly throw a log on this side so that you can cancel it or something. You can't do that, okay? If you like this method better, it is a base 5. So you can put a base 5 here and here. This will undo, and you'll get x over 6 equals 5 squared. My method would have said, this is what it means, 5 to the 2nd power equals x over 6, but it's the same thing. This is 25, and to get rid of the over 6, you multiply. Question? All right, last one on this page. A single cell amoeba reproduces every hour it doubles. This is a very kind question because it says every 1 hour. So H is 1 hour. I don't know that it's that way on the test, I can't remember. 47 is your n sub 0. And this is what you want to get to. What's R? R is that it doubles, okay? So we want to get to 17,500. We started with 47. They are doubling every t over 1 because it says 1 hour. If this was a 5 or something every 5 hours, you'd have t over 5. You have to divide first. This is not going to come out nice, so just leave it. Then you have 17,500 over 47 equals 2 to some exponent. Because t is in the exponent, you have to take the log of both sides. It doesn't matter which kind you use. There's no encouragement here to use ln because there's not an e in the question. That will bring the exponent out in front. So you'll have t over 1 or over 5 if there was some weird number there. And then you're going to divide the log of 2 over to this side. So we have this big, messy thing to type in. All right. The log of 17,500 divided by 47, and then divided by the log of 2, 8.5. Now, the problem is, I don't think we got over 17,500 because we would have had to round it differently. So you just have to tell me what you did get to I'm not going to be picky, but if you put back in an 8.5 here, 47 doubling 8.5 times is 17,016. When I wrote it down. Oh, right there. Thank you. There are 2 more questions that are at the end of packet 3 that I did this morning on the end of the video, okay? They're both matrices kind of questions that are on the final, I think they're on Wednesday's part. One of them is a word problem, though, and it's the tricky kind where it says somebody sold twice as many as somebody else. So make sure you ask about that or practice it or something. Yes.